Next presenter is the Director of Content Marketing at Cleveland Clinic and was recently recognized as the 2016 Content Marketer of the Year by the Content Marketing Institute. She manages a team of writers, designers, and other creative strategists to meet the Cleveland Clinic's online and offline needs. She's responsible for the #1 most visited hospital blog in the country and has over 20 years of storytelling experience. Please give a warm and a great West Virginia welcome to Amanda Todorovich. Amanda.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to talk today about building a killer content marketing strategy. But honestly, I'm really going to tell you a story. And I'm going to tell you a story that led to one of the most amazing moments of my entire career. So as you know, I was introduced as the Content Marketer of the Year. I cannot tell you how humbling and amazing that moment was, because it was an event held in Cleveland, and they surprised me with my daughters on stage to present it to me. And at the conference, actually, behind stage, that I didn't really know until after I walked off, was also my parents and my husband. And my mom is here today, in the back, in the corner, because she's never had the opportunity to hear me present. And I do this a lot in all different audience sizes, and really, truly, I always ask myself, why the heck is some marketer from Cleveland up on this big stage talking about anything? And the reality is, I'm up here because over the last 4.5 years at Cleveland Clinic, we've done some pretty incredible things. And we didn't start out with this vision or objective of trying to do this, truly. In 2012, we launched a blog, and it was sort of that build it and they will come approach. We're just going to put some content out there, and people are going to search, and they're going to find our stuff. And the reality is, that's not what happened at all. And today, 5 years later, we are approaching 5 million visits a month on this blog, doing the same amount of content we were doing in 2012. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is sort of how that happened, and some actionable insights into how you can approach content marketing in very similar ways. When I talk to you about my team and the work that we do, a lot of times I get questions about, well, what if I'm all by myself, a team of 1 or a team of 2 or 3? How can I ever achieve the things that you are doing? The reality is, no matter how big or how small your team is, no matter what industry you are in, a lot of the things that I'm going to tell you today still apply, because it's really about principles of content marketing, and it's really about sticking to your plans. So a little bit of background about Cleveland Clinic, though, because people tend to think that we're just some small hospital in Cleveland. That's not reality at all. We are a multi-billion-dollar enterprise, and we have facilities all over the world, including Abu Dhabi, and opening in 2020, we will actually have a hospital in London right behind Buckingham Palace. Yeah, pretty awesome, right? So we are much bigger than Cleveland, and because of that, most of the work that my team is focused on is really about building awareness across the country and around the world. We know that in Ohio, in particular, we have 99% brand awareness, okay? So most of the things that I'm talking to you about today, we are not interested in people in Cleveland, and we are not interested in people in Ohio. They know who we are, and they tend to choose us when they need us. This effort and a lot of the work that we do is focused on the people who have no idea who we are. So our goals are this: brand awareness and relationships. Okay, brand awareness is an obvious thing, right? Every company needs brand awareness. People need to know who you are. But in healthcare, relationships are especially important. Why? We cannot create demand. You're either sick or you're not. You need surgery or you don't. Simple as that. There's no coupons, there's no contests, and there's no giveaways, right? Nothing is going to make you buy right now. So we have to build relationships. We have to build trust so that people think of us and choose us when they need us, right? And the reality is, people aren't sick every single day, right? People don't need surgery all the time. And if they have a chronic condition, that isn't their entire life. So they don't want to be constantly reminded of that. And when you think about things like social media, and you think about blogs and content marketing, where you're publishing content every day, the challenge we have in healthcare is how you stay relevant when they're healthy, right? And you build trust by helping people take care of themselves and helping them take care of their families, right? And showing that you care even when they're not sick. It's not shoving your services down their throat. with big, giant, make an appointment today messaging, right? Because the reality is they might not need an appointment today, and they might not need an appointment for a year. But when they do, we want them to choose us, right? So again, we can't do a lot of the fun things that a lot of retail brands and other industries can do. And so it really becomes about that honest strategy and really understanding the limitations of our industry. So no matter what strategy you're thinking about doing with content, you have to define it. You have to write it down. You have to articulate it in a way that can be communicated across your organization. Because it's really easy to get into this business of content marketing and just start publishing whatever because you're desperate for ideas, you're desperate for content. Oh my gosh, we turned it on, we can't turn it off, we gotta keep going. And you have no idea what you're doing. You have no roadmap, right? Content strategy is your GPS system, and you have to know what the destination you're trying to reach is. So define a strategy, write it down. I'm gonna talk about what ours is in a second, but the second part of this slide is the most important part. Stick to it. Content marketing is a very long game. You do not see overnight results at all, okay? It's about consistency, and it's about sticking to a plan and waiting and watching and looking at things and iterating. And I'll talk a lot more about that throughout the presentation. But you cannot change your strategy constantly. It's not to say you can't iterate it and tweak it, but you have to give it time and you have to let it bake and you have to socialize it across your organization. It enables you to say no to things that don't fit, okay? Because social media especially is a place where people want to dump everything, right? All things to all people, scrapbook approach, everything that's going on at your organization, got to be up there. Every image, got to be up there, every video. I'm not kidding you, I spend 95% of my day saying no. Truly, I got a lot of people that don't like me. But the reality is we're super successful because we say no, more so than the things we say yes to. So if we didn't have a plan and I didn't have this strategy to point to when they're asking me for things, I would have no defense, right? And then I have to make that based on my opinions, and that's never okay. And it also doesn't allow you to be able to have that consistency across team members, right? Because they're not just coming to me. They're coming to all 25 people on my staff and ask for things. Strategy is important. Documentation is important. Sticking to the plan is very important. This is our content strategy for consumers. Engage users in daily conversation using health, wellness, and clinical content that is unique to Cleveland Clinic. Every single word in this statement matters, okay? We want engagement daily. We want to be conversational, right? We want to use language that people are using when they're talking about clinical things, not necessarily the way our doctors talk about things, right? We want to use health, wellness, and clinical content, okay? Recipes don't drive patient volume, but they're a really important part of our strategy, okay? Keeping people healthy matters too. Wellness and prevention content, we actually do more of than clinical. Unique to Cleveland Clinic, we don't curate other people's content. Everything we do is using our own experts, it's original, and it's created internally. One of the other things that drives this strategy is what we know about consumers and people who are mostly interested in health information all the time. In order to be successful in content marketing, you have to truly make your customers your universe. As content marketers, you have to be the advocate of your user. Because everybody else in the marketing department is pushing for what we want to talk about as an organization, right? We have a new service, we have a new clinic, we have a new doctor. And that's not okay, because the reality is that's not what people care about in California who've never heard about Cleveland Clinic. And they are never going to make an appointment for a headache in Cleveland, right? So know the customer. Our customer for Health Essentials and most of the traffic we get, we've named her. So you know them, personify them, and what I mean by that is truly make them a person to your team. So ours is Judy. We have a picture of her in everybody's queue, and truly the picture came from a Google image search of Judy. And we have some really great selfies she took with her husband. Because Judy likes social media, especially Facebook. Judy's 65 years old. Women 65 and older are our most engaged segment on social. Why? They're the worriers in your families. They're the ones who are constantly like, hey, here daughter, here granddaughter, you should read this article. You might have this problem, right? They're the curators of health information. They're the chief medical officers of their families. Does Judy make all the appointments? Does Judy drive all of our revenue? Absolutely not. But she's the conduit to all the people we do want to reach, right? So she becomes our most important person, and we know everything about her because we've defined it. We look at her behavior online. You cannot necessarily have a super refined persona right out of the gate. You have to do a little bit of work and a little bit of testing and refine it over time. And we've done that. So we know what Judy does online. We know that she has a smartphone. She's not super great about how she uses it, but she's got that Facebook app because she knows if she touches that, she's got instant access to everything that's going on in her family, because that's typically how she's learning about things, much more so than any other traditional way, right? Daughter's not calling on the phone all the time, but she's posting pictures of her kids on Facebook, right? So she's on Facebook all the time. She also is married. Her spouse has some health issues. We know he typically has gout and might have diabetes or prediabetes. Judy might have some heart concerns. Judy's a worrier. So content that we create that says when to worry kills for us every single time. We play on those fears. We know what she's thinking about. We provide value with our content, though, every single time. Whether she ever makes an appointment or not, if she reads something from us, she's learning something. There's something for her to share. There's something for her to do. And that's really important when you think about content marketing. If everything you put out is just self-serving, it will not work. People get sick of it, tune you out, unfollow you, stop reading very quickly. Listen to them. This is really, really important. They tell you everything you need to know in the numbers. Every single platform that we're talking about with content, you can measure, right? We know how many visits we get to every post. We know how many likes, retweets, whatever the metric is, we know. And that helps guide where we go, right? If we just kept doing what we thought was right all the time and never paid attention to that, we're not listening to Judy. We're not listening to our customer. And that is really crucial to how you continue to move forward. The other thing that's really, really important outside of your customer are the people on your team. This is my team, and they are absolutely magical. We have a team of 25 people, but that's not because we went out and hired 25 people to grow a content marketing team. When I came to Cleveland Clinic in 2013, I had a team of 3, and I was managing 1 blog. 2 years later, I have a team of 25. We manage 3 different websites and all offline content. We didn't go out and hire 21 people. There's a fly in my face. Sorry. What we did was bring together groups of people who are already doing this kind of work. I found the people within our organization who are also telling stories, who were doing creative work, but in a silo. Most of them were doing work for print. We were creating a ton of content that never went anywhere online at all. There were a team of 8 graphic designers who did nothing but print. A team of 5 editors who did nothing but print. What the hell? I have 3 people and I'm trying to fill all of these channels all day long. So I made the case to bring everybody together under the umbrella of content marketing. So we brought together the digital engagement team, which is what I was managing before, and we married it with what was creative services team. So we have editors, designers, project managers, print production, the brand manager, and the social digital team all together. So what that did was streamline our process so much so that when we are reaching out to physicians and medical experts across our organization for story ideas or to approve content or to interview for articles, we can do it one time and we can serve all of these different needs. And it aligns our print and digital in such a way that now almost everything we do goes online first, and data informs our investments in print. Because print's expensive, right? And the vast majority of the work that these people were doing was actually for a physician audience. So we do about 50 print publications a year to physician audiences. Why so many? Lots of different specialties. And each specialty sort of has its own print publication. But I'm not joking, for decades, that content literally went in the trash because it was in print publications only and not searchable in any way, shape, or form. So what we did in 2014 was launch Consult QD, which is a physician-facing blog. And we replicated sort of some of the model from what we were doing with Health Essentials, with some modifications, obviously, because a physician is typically only interested in content that's super relevant to him and his specialty, versus a consumer who might be interested in lots of different health topics. So there's some adjustments to the strategy. But overall, everything that I'm talking about here, we've learned how to adapt that for both audiences. And now, all those people who are doing print are also doing digital, have also been able to expand their skill set, have created lots of different career paths for them, and really brought together an amazing unified team who are absolutely committed to high quality content every single day. This team does 3 to 5 blog posts on health essentials every day, 3 stories on Consult QD every single day, and about 2,500 other projects a year. So when I tell you that I have a team of 25, it is not just to do this Health Essentials blog at all. And it still isn't quite big enough in my opinion. We also manage all of the e-newsletters that come out of Cleveland Clinic. I'll talk a little bit more about what those look like in a minute, but this team does a lot of work, is my point, and they are truly awesome, and they're committed to data. We've built a culture that really understands how this all works together, and we've done it fairly quickly. So again, last 2 years really, all of this has come together to do this. This is the model. Create, distribute, measure, optimize, and I would add repeat. Okay? So we create content, lots of content, and that's awesome. And we have tons of great creators. And it's important that we let them create, right? And we keep them creating, which is why we have lots of project managers too, who are kind of on the front lines making sure they get what they need. Distribution is equally important. Lots of teams tend to focus so much on creation and not enough on distribution. And in all honesty, distribution is more important than creation. If you do it right, it allows you to get the most return on that investment in every piece of content you create. Because creating content takes time and resources, and it's expensive, right? And like I said, this doesn't generate overnight results. So getting that return and showing that impact on every piece of content matters more than just creating more, right? So distribution is key, and all of these bubbles that you see around, Health Essentials is the home for this content, but we leverage it all over the place, every single day. So we do 3 to 5 stories on Health Essentials every day, but we post 15 times on Facebook because we repurpose content repeatedly. Most of the content we create is evergreen. The way we make it timely or newsy is in the actual Facebook post itself, so that it keeps that stuff sort of out of the content directly. We leverage it in e-newsletters, we leverage it in native advertising plays, we leverage it across all different platforms. A lot of the content we've generated has actually helped turn into earned media as well. We've got media partnerships in place, we have syndication relationships in place, and we're actually part of the Google News Network. Why? Because the content's not about Cleveland Clinic at all. You don't read it and see all of our great services. It's a Cleveland Clinic doctor or medical expert that's interviewed for that article, but it never says make an appointment anywhere. It never says come see us or we're the best at all. If we did that, we wouldn't have any of these opportunities in place. But we only know that that was working because we've measured everything every step of the way. So from day one, when we were at 0 visits, every single thing we do has been set up to measure and track impact, all the way down to contribution margin. So I know how many patients I get from this. I know how much money we're bringing into the bottom line. But that's not our measure of success. My boss, our CMO, knows how content marketing works and understands social media very well. And when I told you before you can't create demand, this doesn't work. All these opportunities don't happen if that's the plan. So our ultimate metric is brand awareness. I'll show you a slide at the end that shows how we're doing on that metric because we do measure it. We measure everything. There's been quarterly surveys done at the Cleveland Clinic for decades that measure brand awareness and ask lots of questions about sources of brand awareness. So we get very detailed information about, are we making an impact? Are we moving the needle? So we optimize against that. We know the volume of content we're creating and posting on each platform is the right amount. We know what times and what topics to post when because we followed this model consistently for 5 years. I talked about creation, and I put up here a quote from one of my favorite people in the world, Jay Akunzo. He runs a podcast called The Unthinkable. I would encourage you to check it out. But one of my all-time favorite episodes of his podcast talks about eating ice cream, and he compares it to sweeping the floor. Why? Because sweeping the floor is something that you really don't care how it gets done, you just want to get it done. And if somebody else offered to do it for you, fantastic, right? Even better. But when it comes to eating ice cream, that's not really the case, right? You wouldn't want someone else to eat your ice cream for you. And every time you eat ice cream, you think about how to make it better. You tinker. You add different toppings. You combine flavors. You change, is it in a cone or is it in a bowl this time? And you think about those decisions, right? And you try to get to that optimal experience, and at the end, you really want to enjoy it. You want to enjoy that sundae, right? So the process of putting together your ice cream and making those choices is awesome, right? You would never say that about sweeping the floor. And he talks about sweeping the floor as telic, and I would encourage you to listen to it, but he's just talking about the fact that it becomes a chore. Sweeping the floor is a chore. Eating ice cream is not a chore. Creating content needs to be like eating ice cream. You need to take the time to create and be thoughtful and add the sprinkles, right? You have to make sure the content you put out is set up for optimal success before you hit publish. Do everything you can, bring everything you know to the table about putting together that best sundae, right? So I put this up here because I talk a lot about data in the next few slides, and that's a really important part of what we do, but this matters just as much. And the creators need space to create. And data is important and it informs creation, but it does not drive the creative process. And there's a big important difference to that. And you'll hear lots of different people who talk about content marketing, talk about data, talk about intelligent content marketing, which is data-driven content marketing, which to me, if you're not doing that, you're not doing content marketing, but hey, that's a debate for another day. I just really can't say enough either about how many different people we have on our team that make this happen. So the creation part of it is equally words and design. Every single piece of content needs some sort of visual component to it, even if it's just an image that goes on the top of a blog post. The choice of that image matters a lot, right? And it needs to be done by people who understand those nuances. And I'm going to show you an example in a minute of how even though creators create, they're still data-driven people and they still understand how to bring data to the creative process. So this is an example of a Facebook post and an article on health essentials. So it's about butter, bacon, and beef, which is pretty cool. Lots of people really like this article. Anytime you post a picture of bacon on your Facebook page, it really does a lot of great things for you. It's one of my favorites. But you see here, like every piece of that Facebook post package has been tested. So we know how long that teaser copy should be. We know what kind of images and what size to make them. We know how to utilize our headlines on our blog and that subhead. We know when to post about bacon because we try to make every post as hyper-relevant as possible because social media use is habitual. You tend to do it at the same time every day. And so the people that we reach at 6 a.m. are not the same people we reach at 2 p.m. are not the same people we reach at midnight. But the things that they're thinking about at that time are pretty consistent. So when you wake up in the morning, you're thinking about what to eat for breakfast as you're running out the door. At 4 o'clock, you're thinking about what the hell to make for dinner or what to pick up on your way home because you're not going to cook. So we post content at those moments that makes the most sense to people in their everyday lives. Our goal is to provide useful, helpful, and relevant content all day, right? So that's why we're posting 15 times a day on Facebook. Not because I'm super concerned about, how much reach did we have today, but because that's sort of what we've realized is how many times we can actually connect with people throughout the day. Knowing that everything's algorithm driven, like every single channel is algorithm driven now, right? So everybody's not seeing everything we do. Nobody really knows that we post 15 times a day except us. But when we put something on Facebook and it hits somebody over the head in the exact right moment that they're thinking about it, it is amazing how many times they will thank you for doing your job. Thanks, I really needed this right now. I was just thinking about what to make for dinner, now I know. And every single thing that we do is mobile first. Every piece of content we create is designed with that intention. Why? 90% of our traffic is mobile. What? Judy's 65. What do you mean she's mobile? Yeah, she's mobile. She is using that phone much more than she's sitting in front of that desktop computer. And so every platform, we think about that experience, we test against that first. And desktop is sort of nice and make sure it's okay and that it looks okay, but it's not driving the strategy and it's not driving our decision making. We're active on every single channel. So yeah, we do 15 Facebook posts a day, but we're also really active on Twitter. We're doing about 18 tweets a day, and those are all either Health Essentials or Consult QD related. Facebook, we have about 2 million fans, and we're a hospital, and nobody wants to follow a hospital. So why? Because the content we're posting is helpful. It's relevant, whether you're ever a patient or not. And the same is true for Twitter. We're tweeting out health tips. We're tweeting out information that's just easy to consume, and it's not heavy, and it's not saying have surgery tomorrow, and so that's really it. And like, you look at that Pinterest example, the 4 hormones of the apocalypse, that is Judy all day long, okay? She loves this article, she loves this infographic, and it's fun and it plays on her worries, right? And these are the things that she's not necessarily gonna come and ask about. She's not gonna like tell you to write this article, but we know her enough to realize this is something that's going to really resonate with her. And then you can see, we do a lot of food content because people eat all day, right? And if we're gonna be relevant, and eating affects your health, right? Obesity is a huge problem that's leading to all kinds of other things in healthcare in the world. And so it's important to us that we help people make those choices. And it's not just about losing weight, and it's not just about staying healthy. It's, hey, if you've got arthritis, here's some great tips that can help you live with this condition, right? Because people have problems. People are sick, yes. But do we want to tell them, you need to get this type of treatment or you need to take this type of drug? No. We want to help them live with it. So that's kind of hard for our doctors to swallow, because what do you think they want us to do all the time? So when I call them and we say, we want to interview for the 4 hormones of the apocalypse, like, what? What are you talking about? That's not going to make my phone ring. That's not going to fill my patient time slots. But it does. It does, because that doctor that's talking to Judy in that article becomes a friend, becomes trusted, becomes helpful in a way that they don't necessarily realize until we show them the data. And we show them the data all the time, every single step of the way. If they're going to help us with an article, we're going to tell them how it performed, and we're going to tell them that it made a difference in a lot of people's lives. So we focus on better, not more. So that 3 to 5 articles a day, that's literally how much we have done for 5 years consistently. We have not done more to get more traffic. We get more traffic by better, sophisticated, thoughtful distribution, leveraging every platform strategically. We don't publish something on the blog at 9 a.m. and blast it out everywhere else at 9 a.m. Every single channel has its own schedule that's based on performance data over time. We log and track everything. I could tell you for the last 5 years what we've posted on Facebook on this day, at what times, what topics, and how it performed. So I know seasonal trends. I understand what's going on in the news. We talk about that every single day, and that influences what we do. We know what times to post what topics. We know what times not to post things. We know which channels are going to be the best suited for what topics too. So there are things that we do that might only ever go on Facebook, and they won't go on Twitter, because the Twitter audience is slightly different. Judy's not a real active Twitter user. We're going to hit 1 million Twitter followers today. Yay! So excited. But those people, they're busy professional people. They're not retired Judy, okay? So we have a little different persona for that, but it's not our number one driver, because Twitter does not drive nearly as much traffic for us as Facebook does. And actually, for the first time in 2016, organic search is our number one source of traffic. Social used to be for a long time, and actually when we first started, Facebook accounted for about 60% of our traffic alone. Today it's more like 30%. Thank you, algorithm changes. And now we have to do video all day long if we want to beat it. And Facebook Live, right? It's so much fun, right? To figure all this out. It's great, great. But again, it's not more. It's not more. So because video is important, that doesn't mean we now post 25 times a day to add the video in, right? It just means that we do video instead, and we do better video, and we optimize video content the same way we optimize any other content, right? We watch the data, we monitor, we tweak, we optimize, and we keep going until, it fits. And so when I tell you that our posts are like tested and proven, and we have, know how long everything should be, that's never done because the game changes all the time. So that testing and iterating is constant. But that only happens if you build that culture into your team, right? And you don't have them focused on more, but you have them focused on better, and you have them thinking about sprinkles. So yeah, we really like data, the example that's up here actually is a really great story. One of my graphic designers came to me a couple of years ago, and she works on our primary, flagship e-newsletter, also called Health Essentials. We're creative like that. But that goes out once a week, okay, to about 50,000 people. Our open rates are about 40%, and our click-through rates are 60 to 65% on average, which is pretty incredible. Yeah, mouth open, I know. It's awesome. But that happens because they're focused on this all the time. They understand the audience, and our Health Essentials e-news subscriber is Judy. So there's lots of overlap, and that's why she's our #1 most important person. But what I'm showing you here is a test that she wanted to run because we include food content in every issue of Health Essentials. And she asked me, I want to look at the image selection. Every issue, I have to pick an image for this food. And I'm faced with this big dilemma. Do I include the spoon or not? What do you think wins? Spoon, every time. Every single time. It's pretty unbelievable. So I tell you that story because she's not a writer. She's not a social media person. She's not a web analytics person. She's a graphic designer. But she figured out how to use data in her job, in her role in the process. And that's what I've been really trying to reinforce with every person on our staff. That test doesn't tell her what image to choose. It just gives her data to inform her decision making. And that's really what it's all about. So we test things and we test them again, and we're never content. We know we can always do better. And that culture has served us extremely well. So everybody on my staff is really, truly eat, sleeping, and breathing data. But it's not enough just to look at it. You have to mind it. You have to make it actionable. You have to look for trends and do something with that information. If you just say, well, the spoon wins, and then every single time you pick the spoon, that's not really it, right? It's making sure that you're understanding what that's telling you about the user. And what we've discovered is, yeah, that spoon's important, but it's really about making that image feel like they're about to dig into the food, right? So making the food look like it's really ready to be eaten. And so that informs a lot more. And then also, I told you, we log everything, right? And it's a lot of work. Going back and managing spreadsheets is a pain in the ass. Nobody wants to do that. We just want to get the post done and move on to the next thing and check the box. And if we did that, I can tell you right now, I wouldn't be standing up on this stage, and we would never be as successful as we've been at all. Minding that data, figuring out what it means, and understanding how to apply it to your work is how you win. So here's that Health Essentials e-newsletter I was talking about. It performs really well. It's amazing. And it's super clean, and it's super simple, and there's not a lot in here. But that's harder to do than slapping in a whole bunch of stories with a whole bunch of words. So the team that does this is pretty big, and they're in the numbers all the time, and we're trying to figure out always how to grow subscribers and how to keep those open rates and click-through rates as strong as they are, because it's really easy to click that unsubscribe button, and then we're really dead in the water, and that's not good. So what do? Same exact thing we do on the blog. They create content, distribute content, measure it, optimize it, repeat. Every single issue, they go back and they look at what did they click on, why. Did they use those share buttons? Is that blue color button the right color button? Is the size of it correct? Are the image choices right? Do we have enough white space? What does this look like on a phone versus a tablet versus a desktop, and how much are people using those devices with the e-newsletter specifically, right? It's been so successful, and some of the feedback that we've gotten is they want more, right? So we're doing this once a week. We really want to get to once a day, but doing a whole package like that isn't easy. And so we're not ready for that. So what we did instead was launch the health and wellness tip. So the tip of the day is what you see there on the right. So it only really focuses on one story. So it's a little easier to put together. They write a tip, again, that provides value, even if they do not click through to the rest of the article. right? They just read that, they learn something, or they can do something different. But it also does link back to a full article. This is all existing content on Health Essentials. This isn't new every day. This is content that's already been published. It's another way to repurpose and repackage it. And if you can imagine this, the open rates and click-through rates on the tip of the day are better than the original weekly. So we've had a couple of issues that have actually hit an 85% click-through rate. Yeah, it's pretty cool, pretty cool. So we know that though, if we just kept doing the same thing and we just set it and forget it and check the box, follow the formula, wouldn't see those kinds of numbers. The team wouldn't know what to do next to keep making that reader enticed and excited to open it. None of this would be possible, though, without the support of our senior leadership. So I said at the beginning, I'm really blessed with leadership who understands how content marketing works. He's really into social media. Why do we have 2 million Facebook fans, and why am I about to hit 1 million Twitter followers? Because Paul Matson, our CMO, gave me money I didn't even ask for. Why? He loves this stuff. And he understands the more people that see this content, the more people know who Cleveland Clinic is, the more people trust Cleveland Clinic, the more people love what we're doing. And so brand awareness is important, and the measurement has proven this. But I put this quote up here from Paul about what we're doing because you can't do this work without support, without resources, right? And I know that most of the time the challenge for all of you is to get them. And how do you make the case to get them? And I get asked all the time, what kind of reporting do you have to put together, and what tools are you using to put reporting together? And the reality is for us, I don't have to do much because the numbers speak for themselves, right? When you see our followers stay and engage, when you see our traffic continue to rise, we're doing our job, right? So I didn't go and ask Paul for money. I didn't go and ask Paul for staff. What I did was show him the numbers, just continually, weekly updates. And that's consistent for the last 4 years. Never did Paul tell me I had to hit 4 million visits, okay, ever. When I walked in the door in 2013, we were getting about 200,000 visits a month to Health Essentials. Never did he tell me that I needed to make it monetizable. Never did he tell me I needed to be a part of Google News. Never did he tell me that I needed to have revenue coming in from our content. But that's where we are today. Why? Because he's so supportive, and we truly can do so much without having to get 14,000 approvals. As long as we're working within the budget we've set, and we're doing the things that we've outlined as our strategy, the documented strategy that we're sticking to, he's cool with whatever we do. And we ask what if every day. So innovation and iterating and thinking about how to do it better is constant, right? And he loves that. He loves the culture of our team, and he loves hearing those stories. Great example. Last week, we had 2 huge events at Cleveland Clinic. We had the Patient Experience Summit, which is big in our industry. We were the first to ever have it. We get about 2,500 attendees. We were live tweeting, and we were social mediaing the hell out of that summit for 3 days. My team was dead on their feet, okay? We made the hashtag trend. We had 51 million social media impressions. Unbelievable. The day after the Patient Experience Summit, we hosted the Cleveland Clinic Health Forum, which was a panel that was hosted by our CEO with the head of the DEA and the former Surgeon General talking about the opioid crisis. We had to do this via Facebook Live. There were 700 people in attendance in person, and about 700,000 people watching it live. The day after the Patient Experience Summit. Why am I telling you this? Because the very next day, I just put together a quick email to Paul to just say, hey, both of these hashtags were trending. Here's all the basic high-level numbers that we have at this point. Just wanted you to know. And that was it. Quick, super simple, straightforward email. And he writes back and he's like, that's incredible. What are you going to do next week? But that's always his question, just what are you going to do? And obviously there was also congratulations and great job to the team and everything like that. But he also forwarded that email to our CEO, who wrote back and just this amazing complimentary note about how we helped make this really important issue with the opioid crisis top of mind, and that we made this major impact, and that we achieved his mission and starting a conversation. And so leadership support is crucial, but I don't think it's about formal reporting. I think it's just about conversations, and I think it's just about those informal updates and sharing data as much as you can. And you have to be bold about it, right? When you do need something, you have to ask for it. They're not going to know that you need a specific tool or that you might need some incremental funding because you have an idea for a really cool experiment. You have to ask. And that picture that's there, I actually took that at Facebook's headquarters. I was there last summer on a trip because I got asked to speak at a conference there. And while I was there, I also got to visit Twitter headquarters and LinkedIn's headquarters. Awesome. I love my job. So exciting. But I tell you that because I was so struck by the signage and the artwork throughout Facebook's headquarters. It was the thing that stuck with me the most. And I'll tell you, the outside of that building is nothing special. Besides the big thumbs up sign, it's just a big gray building. But what matters is what's within. And I really walked away thinking about how to bring that back to my team and how to make sure that they understand that even though we don't work at some cool agency that has free Snapple, we need to be, sorry, that's kind of an inside joke with my boss. His goal in life is to work somewhere that gives free Snapple, and we talk about it all the time. But I have a creative team that sits in a bunch of gray cubicles all day, right? And that's the reality for most people who do this kind of work. And so I tell them all the time, and I share these images with them because in every single week in our staff meeting, there's a word of the week or a quote of the week or something that tries to kind of fuel that inspiration, because you have to have that confidence in your work. You have to feel like you can test and experiment and be, risk-taking and not afraid of consequences, right? And that only happens with that leadership support. So all of this stuff matters. All of this stuff has to come together in the right way for this to work. But that doesn't mean it takes 25 of you. It doesn't mean that you can't do it if you don't have $1 million budget. It's just about finding the right voice, finding the right persona that you're talking to, and doing it meaningfully. So Health Essentials traffic is just kind of mind-blowing. I mean, literally, I walked in at 200,000 visits, and 6 months later, we hit 1 million. And the only thing that I changed was our distribution strategy. I just looked at the numbers and tweaked, and we kept tweaking, and we kept tweaking, and we kept tweaking, and year after year, we kept hitting more and more and more and more and more. And now, we're hitting about 4.5 million visits a month pretty consistently. And we're actually spending less money to do it, which is pretty incredible to me. Our social followers have grown a lot, particularly because of Paul's funds, which is really nice. But I show you this chart because this is why I'm up here. I mean, it's because we've been able to do something out of just that what if question. If we did this, would it work? If we try this, will it make a difference? If we look at this data and we see something that jumps out at us, what are we going to do about it? How are we going to use it? You have to challenge yourself. You have to ask those questions. And if you're not the boss, ask your boss, what if we try this? You have to use your voice. You have to ask the questions. Console QD is very similar. This is newer. We launched this in 2014. But we are, I think, year over year at 200% growth right now. No more content than we've done before. We're just seeing that impact on the physician audience, and they have come to expect this great content and are engaging more. Every single one of our physician e-newsletters is up. Every single social platform is growing. It's unreal. I told you before, consumers, Facebook is our biggest social media source of traffic. For physicians, it's Twitter. We do a lot with medical meetings and conferences. We've completely revamped our approach there, and we're doing just a ton of Twitter with them. And it's interesting because our Twitter strategy, we have one handle for physicians. It's Clinic MD. And originally, lots of people thought we needed to have one for every single specialty, thinking only physicians would care about only their specialty. And that's not true at all. They like to congratulate their colleagues across different specialties. They like to engage with content and understand how that could apply to their specialty. They also like lots of content around leadership and burnout and things that cut across specialties. So we've been able to grow that to 250,000 followers in 2 years, really. And we replicate that model, same thing. We look at the data, we constantly optimize. It's that create, distribute, measure, and optimize every single time. So this is a really ridiculous looking slide. I don't like it. However, this is the chart that we get quarterly that shows the results of our brand awareness surveys. It's kind of tricky because when they ask consumers questions about things, it's pretty fuzzy to them, right? They don't understand the difference between a health essentials article and a news article versus a website article versus a social media post, right? We ask those questions and we get some fuzzy answers, but typically we like to combine all of those things into digital sources because we know that they don't know the difference. Digital sources combined has been the #1 driver of new brand awareness for us for the last 3 years. Social is a big part of that. Social kind of spikes and goes depending on numbers, but and when I say numbers, I mean numbers of respondents to the survey and how much they've engaged. But new brand awareness is the most important thing we could do because it's people who've never heard of Cleveland Clinic before. That's the metric. And so when I look at what we do, one of the things that's really important to me is how many of those visitors, of those 4.5 million, are new visitors, which means they've never been to clevelandclinic.org before, they've never been to our website before. 2017, 4.5 million visits a month, 71% of those, month over month over month, are new. And we see it play out. This is what my CMO looks at every single quarter to say, are they doing the right thing? Is this worth all these resources we're putting behind it? So this influences how we move forward, right? I know who this population is that they're surveying. That plays into who Judy is. That plays into who Judy connects with, right? That plays into what kind of content does Judy share and do we create. And, we really are focused a lot on scale. That's one of Paul's favorite words. Favorite words. If we're going to try something new, how can we scale it? We're about to launch a podcast. How can we scale it? Okay. So we always have to kind of think about that, but it's never prescriptive, right? It's let the data help us figure that out. One of the things that I'm absolutely the most proud of beyond the brand awareness thing is that sort of this really nice miracle happened. When you scale your audience as much as we have, there's this opportunity to start to think a little bit differently about your site. So 1.5 years ago, we were talking to Google, and they're like, why aren't you guys monetizing your blog? You're reaching millions of people. You could generate some revenue. We're like, oh yeah, maybe. But that's scary as a brand. There's no control over all those advertisers, and if I just turn on Google ads, what the hell is that gonna do? Our doctor's gonna call and yell at me because we have these ads on our site now, and it's alongside their name on our content. And our user's gonna stop reading because now we have ads. All big concerns, right? But the thing about Google ads is you can turn them off and there's no penalty. You can do it anytime you want. Turn them on, turn them off, and nobody cares. So we're like, well, let's try it out. So we did last August, and we ran it for about 6 months. Nobody complained. Traffic went up. No doctors were calling and yelling at me. And we're like, this is kind of cool. Marketing doesn't bring in money, usually. But we knew doing it this way was probably not going to make the most money, right? So Google ads are great, but the CPCs are really low, and it's a lot to manage, actually, to clean it up, to keep ads off your site that you don't want. And we weren't interested in hiring our own advertising sales team. It's not really what we're all about at all. So we started to explore some opportunities for partnerships. So today, we actually have a formal partnership with Verywell, which is About.com's health arm, which About.com is now called .dash, for those of you that don't know. It's kind of weird. But the way that the agreement is structured, as long as we're hitting certain traffic thresholds, there's minimum revenue guarantees that are pretty substantial. And all of that revenue comes back to my budget. Yeah. So we can continue to invest in all kinds of things. We can continue to experiment with things, new tools, right? We've used that revenue to do things like Outbrain, which is just basically driving more traffic. So it fuels growth, and it fuels the investment in great content, and it allows us to do some things that we weren't going to be able to do before. Because at the same time that this was happening, we were also facing care affordability issues across the entire industry. Budgets were being cut, staff was being reduced. So this has helped offset a lot of that and really kept us going at the levels that we've wanted to continue to do this. We also generate revenue through syndication. So we have companies that pay us to use our content in different ways. And a lot of that comes from other brands who maybe want to use health content on their intranet to help keep employees healthy.